In the harsh lands of the Freljord, there are those gifted with a deep connection to spiritual magic. These warrior shamans, known as spirit walkers, serve among the many different tribes, offering their abilities in exchange for a community where they may live and train. Born under a blood-red moon, Udyr displayed an awareness for the intangible at an early age. He could feel the raw emotions of nearby creatures, understanding the mournful howls of tundra wolves before he even uttered his first words. Destined to become a great spirit walker, he was taken in by the Winter's Claw and set on a path to mastering his innate talents. While his mentors expected him to grow into his powers with ease, the boy soon found himself crippled by his own gifts. The chaotic thoughts of so many other living beings flooded his mind to the point of near insanity. Day and night, Udyr wished desperately for even a moment of solitude, but his wishes was to be granted in the worst way possible. One dreary evening, his tribe fell victim to an ambush by the Frost Guards. Merciless and cruel, these sworn followers of a mysterious ice witch slaughtered entire families, taking special care to eliminate anyone displaying hints of spirit magic. If not for the heroic sacrifice of his mentors, Udyr may have met his end on that fateful night. Filled with sorrow and torment by the pained screams of his tribe's people, Udyr lost control. He unleashed his fury, causing an explosion of spiritual energy so strong that it shook the nearby mountain tops. The packed snow crumbled within seconds. An, an avalanche rained down upon the battlefield, forcing the Frost Guards to flee. When the young spirit walker crawled his way out, he found few survivors. Fearing his destructive power, the Winter's Claw abandoned him, all save for one. A sympathetic Iceborn looked past Udyr's inner turmoil. She saw a man with strength and flaws like any other, and the two cherished what little time they had together. Between the bitter demands of Freljordian life. Outside of this relationship, however, Udyr grown accustomed to be alone. The mere sight of him scared most others away, until the day he met a stern monk, who had traveled far from foreign lands. This man sought the wisdom of those who could tap into the spirit of primal beasts. Wary of all strangers, Udyr lunged at the monk again and again, only to find him dodging every blow. When they were both exhausted, the monk introduced himself as Lee Sin. In him, Udyr saw someone who truly shared his struggles. The two men forged a quick friendship, with Lee Sin offering to take Udyr east to Ionia, a place where generations had studied how to keep the spirits at peace. On their travels, they learned that the Empire of Noxus had invaded Ionia, and Udyr offered to fight alongside his friend in defending the monastery of Hirana. The Spirit Walker's skills proved invaluable as he drew upon the strength of mighty beasts, channeling their untamed vigor into his mortal fists. After a fierce and fiery battle, he stood beside the wounded monks. They were victorious. Encouraged by the Ionians' understanding of the spirit realm, Udyr chose to stay and train under Heraea's esteemed elders. He appreciated how the people here value harmony, and reasons over the seasons felt his mind and body calmed by their compassion. But still, Udyr could not deny the call of his homeland. He heard the anxious cries of Freljordian spirits carried by the Vesli winds, and sensed great danger steering beyond the horizon. Bidding farewell to Ionia and his dear friend Lee Sin, he set out to rejoin the Winter's Claw, knowing not how he would be received. Far above, Udyr heard the cries of an eagle riding the gale. Its voice was strong, confident, but not close enough to get in the way of his own thoughts. It was a relief to feel this human. The voices were never silent, but Udyr knew not to be grateful nor ungrateful. Even a moment's reprieve was rare. I can hear myself breathe, for now at least. Today he walked alone. He hiked up the mountain slopes, a chill wind following him, carrying away his lingering memory of Ionia's ethereal beauty with every gust. The monks at Hirana had offered him a parting gift a few moons past when he left their lands, a riddle intended to guide him on his path to mastering his spiritual powers. Below the winter's peak, nature's pure life essence flows, now transformed into glass. It read more beautifully in their tongue than his own, but it had not taken him long to solve. After spending months traveling with the blind monk, Udyr had learned to decipher the meaning behind Ionian speech. Research, reaching the precipitous eastern slopes of Winter's Pike, Udyr paused to gaze out at the lake before him, frozen in all its majesty. At the edges to the lake lay the bones and corpses of the wild beasts, as well as those of dead shamans and priests who had come to this place months, years, and lifetimes before him. Udyr stood still, his chest bare, eyes closed, bracing against the brisk of morning air. This land was my home. He looked down at his reflection on the ice. It showed the face of a man, ragged and worn from his travels. May rest ends. I hear them coming. The ice stirred a crack at first, as Udyr saw his image splinter into disparate pieces. Soon, entire slabs broke off, drifting apart. Udyr waited, respectfully. The frigid water bubbled, slowly to begin with and then rapidly, all at once. Steam rose from the surface, filling the air with heat. Udyr took a quiet breath, his shoulders rising to ready himself. Out of the mist leaped an ice-formed beast carved by the land's magic and birthed from the lake. The ground trembled as it took a thundering step towards Udyr. Udyr looked up at the wild spirit towering above him, 3 times his height. The murmurs started low, soft, leaves falling from fresh snow. Yet quickly they grew, bitter, relentless. They, there they are. Grunts turned into snarls, mutters turned into barks, one swallowing another. Their rage seized his mind, shattering his every thought. At first, the voices competed for dominance. Elnux, Druvax, and others. Udyr had heard these voices within himself many times. Soon, they joined together into the shape he had most feared. The ravenous tiger. Spirit Walker, step closer. It growled, raise your voice and show us why you have returned. Udyr only just mustered the strength to stifle a grasp. His knees buckled under the weight of the noise in his hand. and within his head. His hands shot towards the soil to ready his body. Straining his neck, he glared up at the savage creature, not willing to answer. The voices rose at the sight of Udyr's inaction, with the tiger roaring above the rest. You do not deserve to call the Freljord home. You are weak. Udyr braced himself as the spirit rammed into his head. Shards of its icy body cutting through his skin. Trembling far across the ground, Udyr landed against hard rock. I must not give in. Regaining his balance, he wiped off the blood of his face and forced his hands into a fist. He punched his knuckles into the frosty ground, and the throbbing of his arms overtook him. Veins pulsated from his hands to his shoulders. Getting back to his feet, Udyr readied himself to deflect another blow. The spirit roared once more. The strong fight! Instead, you stifled your voice and cower. The spirit charged head first. Udyr tried dodging out of the way, but his foe was quicker than stronger. As he rolled to the side, the tiger swiped his leg and claws, spraying the spirit walker's blood across the frosted ground. Udyr knelt on one knee in pain. He felt his own anger building, but still he held back. I must not give in. The spirit loomed closer, letting out a feral cry before pouncing towards Udyr. Realizing he could not dodge in time, he crossed his arms before him and clenched his fists. Magical energy surrounded him, blocking the tiger spirit's lethal blow. The spirit slid backward. After regaining its footing, it grinned through its fangs. Its icy body crackled with viscerous energy, splintering the bones of its victims in the past beneath his feet. Death was all this place knew. Udyr knelt on both knees now, his head down, his body pounding with pain while the spirits paced around him. He felt the ground shake with its every step. This is not the way. He gritted his teeth, their points drawing blood from his lips as he felt the ground tremble once more. The voices doomed. The weak are prey. Udyr looked up, seeing the spirit charge towards him, his eyes lusting for blood. So wide he could see himself staring back. With the same lust for violence, I must embrace who I am. Golden flames erupted from Udyr's skin like wildfire, the anger coursing through his body, matching the fury of the tiger spirit before him. Finally, the prey has decided to fight. Udyr roared as he rushed straight at the tiger spirit. Vaulting onto the beast's leg, he climbed its craggy surface, smashing his bleeding hands into whatever piece of ice he could pull himself upward. The creature shook, the sharp edges of its body piercing the spirit walker's body. Udyr screamed, releasing in his might. At last, his wrath matched the fire in his foe, as the two reveled in their savage violence. With a brutal lunge, he reached for the spirit's back, trails of his blood dripping down its sides. Spirit energy surged through him, a force so strong enough to drown out any pain. The voices of wild beasts clamored, unchecked in his mind, the bitter cries of those consumed by the tiger and his own unbridled anger, merging as one. I am no prey. Udyr brought his fist down in a flurry of explosive blows, creating a web of cracks running down the creature's body. He clawed and slashed with abandon, tearing away at his foe. Howling in pure rage, he threw back his head and sank his fangs deep into the spirit's neck. He expected the spirit to tremble over, its body to break apart, giant lumps of ice disappearing into dust. But it was already gone, along with its voices. Had they shrieked? Had they cried? High above, he heard the eagle call. Focus! Calm! Udyr fell and staggered onto solid ground. Breathing heavily, he lay next to the lake and watched the last of his enemy vanish. Suddenly, he heard another rumbling and stumbled to his feet. The lake, as if celebrating his victory, began to thaw. Pieces by piece, the remaining ice melted, raising the water level to wash over the cold, hard land. Remembering the ritual he had repeated countless times in Hanara, Udyr limped forth. Cupping his hands, he splashed cool water across his head, shoulders, and back, rinsing his wounds clean. Then gently, he took a drink. He stared at his reflection, seeing a man looking back, wounded, tested, alive. I am who I am. Udyr only heard the sound of flowing water, and yet he did not smile. But this fight is far from over.